Hey guys, welcome to a fun book recommendation video. If you are looking for a chunky read, this video is for you. So the reason I am sharing this video is because in my Read Your Bookshelf challenge this year, there's two different sides at play here. You can either be on the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle side, and in February you're going to be reading a book that is under 250 pages. If you are on that side, I did a video about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, sharing I think 30 books that would work, that I enjoy, that are short. If you are on the L.M. Montgomery side, we are going with Puffed Sleeves, and that is a book over 400 pages, which is where this video comes in. Now, I decided to go the L.M. Montgomery route, so if you want to know which book I'm going to be reading for this, I will be sharing my TBR sometime next week, possibly Monday, and then you can find out which book I'm reading. So let's just get onto the stack here. There's a variety of different genres, and I believe each of my editions here has over 400 pages. One of them has 401, but it counts. So we're just gonna go in no particular order. I kind of had them organized and then they fell, so the order is just chaos. First off, let's start with a chunky classic, Little Women. Obviously it depends which edition you are reading from, but mine is over 700 pages. It is a fairly small book, so I think most are probably less, but this is a wonderful story about four sisters. I really enjoy this classic and is one I would like to reread soon. I would recommend this. It's a good winter read. It has a little bit of Christmas vibes as well, but it's really good for the winter, so February would be a good month for it. I maybe failed by picking February to be the month where a bunch of us are going to be reading really chunky books, but that's okay. We'll just see it as a really good challenge. The next one I have to share is one of my favorite Kate Morton books. That is The Lake House. I've been raving about this book ever since I read it in the summer. So it has like summer gothic vibes. It is dual-ish timeline, mostly 1933 and present day. So a little boy, I think he was 11 months old, went missing in 1933. A detective from present day comes across the mystery. This is more of a detective mystery than Kate Morton's other books, and I think that's probably why I really enjoy it. Highly recommend this one. This one clocks in over 450 pages, but I always say her books tend to feel about 100 pages too long, and this was the exception. This one did not feel too long at all. Okay, if you want to go for a doozy, how about some Brandon Sanderson? The Way of Kings, or any of the books in the series, are over 1,000 pages. This one actually, what does it check in at? It's really close. Of course, the books just get longer in the series. This one clocks in at 1,001 pages. So if you are into epic fantasy with some political stuff going on, which generally that's an anti-buzzword for me, but Sanderson does it well, I would recommend the series. I think rated all of the books 5 stars, but I struggle picking up a book this big knowing that I'm only going to be reading this book for a while, but I have really enjoyed all of the ones in the series. Okay, science fiction now. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir was one that I did not expect to love, but I did. This one is hitting around 475 pages. The audiobook is also really good. I would recommend it. That's what I did. I listened to it. And this one we follow a guy who wakes up in space and he forgets everything. Like, he doesn't know why he's there, and so slowly things start getting revealed to him, or he remembers things. Because of that, I never want to say too much about this book because we find out what it's about from him, with him. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. Another classic I read earlier this year, in the fall, October, November, is Wives and Daughters. I really did enjoy it. Lots of tabs, lots of them read because there is a stepmother in here that drove me nuts. This one is just over 600 pages, and so in this one we mainly follow a young lady named Molly. Her father has remarried and it's a little bit of her struggles with her stepmother. Her stepmother is very narcissistic, and yeah, she's not my favorite character. She was kind of interesting to read about, but I also just like wanted to throttle her. And I'm not like an aggressive person, but this book made me really irritated because of her, but also I liked the story. So it's weird how I can feel both those different things. I think this one's my last classic on here, and that is Oliver Twist. So far, this is my favorite Dickens, other than like maybe A Christmas Carol, but they can't really compare because A Christmas Carol is super short. And this one is over 500 pages in my edition. Obviously lots of different editions, so you would have lots of different page counts for Oliver Twist, but I think most of us know the story. We follow young Oliver Twist, who starts out in a poor house and he runs away. And this is another classic that I could read again sometime soon. I could really go for that. Okay, if you want you want to read a book over 400 pages, but you want to put in as little effort as possible, this one clocks in at 401 pages and is free verse. So like this is the quickest 400 page book you're gonna get. And this is Alone by Megan E. Freeman. So this is a upper middle grade dystopian book where this girl wakes up one morning and everyone in her town has disappeared. And so she's left to try to survive, try to figure out what happened, and the neighbor's dog is her companion. And that's really all I'm gonna say, because yes, it's 400 pages, but like there's not a whole lot of words per page, so it goes by pretty quick. So if you got this prompt, you need to check off a box that's over 400 pages, but you want to do it as quick as possible, this is the book for you. Another middle grade book, this one has more words, but it is a fast read as well. This one is just over 500 pages in my edition. This is Keeper of the Lost Cities and book 1. My edition is illustrated and annotated, which is pretty cool because you get like some author notes throughout. She like chats a little bit about what she was thinking about when she was writing different things, or she points out little mistakes or things that shouldn't have happened. It's pretty cool. And so this is a middle grade fantasy story where right at the beginning our main character Sophie finds out, like she's always known she could hear people's thoughts, and she finds out at the beginning of the book it's because she's an elf and she's living in the human world, but she should actually be in the elf world. And so she goes there and the book unfolds and the series unfolds. I am one of those people that is waiting for the last book to come out. I'm curious to see how it's going to wrap up. So it is a big book, but also a quick read. Another science fiction read, this one is YA, is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. This is my favorite Stephanie Meyer book. I've never read the Twilight Saga, so she wrote this one, or also The Chemist. This one is quite big, right around 600 pages. The audiobook is great. In this one, aliens, oh, this is one of those ones that sounds ridiculous when you try to explain it, but like, I promise it was good. So aliens are slowly taking over people's bodies in the world. So somehow what happens is they like cut a slit at the back of people's necks, and these aliens are like a worm, and they get in there and take over. I know it sounds weird. And so our main character, whose name is Melanie, she is in hiding, trying to stay away so that she doesn't get taken over by aliens. Oh my goodness, it sounds so ridiculous when I say it, but the book is really good. Don't watch the movie. The movie is terrible. The book is way better. Okay, I lied. There is one more classic on here. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. My edition has just over 400 pages. So this is a gothic story about a woman whose name we actually never learn. Our main character, we never learn her name, but she has married this man, and Rebecca was his first wife, and she feels like she's always living in the shadow of Rebecca. And it's interesting. It's an interesting story. I've only read it once, and it's one of those ones that I think upon second read, so much more, like I'll get so much more out of it. So I look forward to the day when I reread this one, because it's a book that I didn't love when I was reading, but I've thought about it so much since then that I need to reread it. Another science fiction book is Frank Peretti's Illusion. So in this one, it's dual timeline-ish. So we follow Dane. Well, this is very confusing actually. So Dane and Mandy are a couple, and right before the book begins, Mandy has died in a car accident, and so Dane is mourning her passing. But meanwhile, somehow Mandy, she wakes up in her, how is this now? Like her teen self from 1970. So she's in present day or whenever this is set, but she's herself from 1970. And so it's an interesting, almost like time travel type book. Yeah, so I won't say much more than that, but I really enjoyed this one. Next up is My Lady Jane. I would also recommend My Plain Jane in this series. So these are historical fiction, alternate history, fantastical retelling issues, depending on the book. So this one follows Lady Jane Grey. Book 2 follows Jane Eyre. So obviously she was never really a person. Lady Jane Grey was a real person. So you don't have to read them in order either. If you feel like reading about Jane Eyre or Lady Jane Grey, pick one. This one made me research so much of the Tudor history, and I really appreciated that. And like it's made that history stick in my brain so much better than just reading about it would have. So I love the series for that. Thoroughly enjoyed this one, and then went on to love My Plain Jane even more. Okay, we've got a historical fiction, which I feel like this is maybe the only straight up historical fiction on here. Most of mine were just under 400 pages. But The Fountains of Silence by Rudy Sepetys is closer to 500 pages. And so this one is set during the dictatorship of General Franco. So this is Madrid, 1957, which is a time period I didn't really know anything about, other than like there's a little mention of it in You've Got Mail. That's really like all that I knew. And so in this one we have 18-year-old Daniel Matheson. So he isn't, his dad's like an oil tycoon from the States. And then there is it says photography and fate introduce him to Anna, whose family's interweaving obstacles reveal the lingering grasp of the Spanish Civil War, as well as chilling definitions of fortune and fear. So I find this one hard to explain, but I really appreciated learning about a different time period in history. And Ruta Sepetys, her books are always so amazing. Like they kind of touch on a different time period, or she just writes about them in a different way. And I can't recommend this one enough either. Two more left. We've got historical fantasy. So this one is Fox, and this one is just over 400 pages. This is a historical fantasy where our main character is, what's his name? He is a made-up character, Thomas Fox, but he is son to Guy Fawkes, who in the 17th century, I can't remember what time it was, 16th century maybe, he tried to assassinate the king. And so in here we have Thomas Fox, and then there's a fantastical element where there's a stone plague going around and infecting people. And as well, people have different magic depending on what type of mask they have. So whatever color your mask is, you can control all things that are that color. And this was my first, I believe my first historical fantasy, and ever since then I've just loved this subgenre. And the last one, this one also is a Sanderson one. It is Skyward. This is his YA science fiction series. It clocks in at around 400 or 500 pages, and in this one we follow Spensa. She lives on a planet, and her father used to be a pilot, but he got deemed a coward for some reason, so she's always dreamed of becoming a pilot and kind of redeeming her family's name. I love Spensa as a character. She's very feisty. She reminds me a lot of my teenage self, like not really the kind of person you like in real life, but they're a fun character to read about. I'm glad I matured, because I don't think I myself now would like my teenage self. But Spensa was a lot of fun to read about, and I just finished this series. The last book came out a couple months ago, so definitely recommend this one as well. So hopefully if you guys are in the puffed sleeves category, which I know most people were going the Doyle route, possibly because they were a little afraid of bigger books. Hopefully though, if you are joining me, this will help The book that I'm going to be reading for this prompt is a chunker, so stay tuned for my TBR to come. If you guys are doing the challenge, I would love to hear if you're doing the Doyle side or the Montgomery side for February, and which book you plan on reading for it.